Today, we have the pleasure, the honor of having Rita Antonio from Portugal. Hello, Rita. How are you?
Angelica. I'm good. It's really nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Rita Antonio is a multidisciplinary artist with her interests and studies and experience in art and design. And for a long time, she's been working with the idea of solving problems with low means of production, like quick fixing or hacking. She's going to explain to us all of this. And she works mostly with installations, and she's going to talk about this ongoing project which she started in Mexico, right?
Yes. So yes, I started a new project in Mexico 2 years ago, a little bit more than 2 years ago. It's all new project, but then again, it's also a continuation of the things I was doing before. This project is entitled, an ambitious project collapsing, also known by the fifth wheel. And as the title suggests, this project, once I start working on it, I feel like it has everything to collapse. And I also call it the fifth wheel because the fifth wheel in a car usually does not contribute for the performance of the car, doesn't do anything to the car. But I think for me, this title, especially the fifth wheel, really has this idea that even though it doesn't do anything to the performance, it's still very useful, especially when you lose a wheel and a tire. And somewhat, this is a way to explain that when you try to find new models you think they're not going to have any impact in the world, even though they have a very little impact is something. And it's always better to fight for it and to resist to it than to conform, basically. Anyways, this project, as all my other projects, comes from trying to solve a problem. On this case, it was a general crisis, was an economical crisis, an emotional crisis, a conflict of values crisis. Basically, I grew up in Portugal, in the countryside, and I moved to Norway, which is a very wealthy country, as you know. And at some point in my life, I was really in this gray zone of like not being able to be one or another. And I felt like I had to come up with a project that would find solutions for this gray zone. And then at some point, I decided I want to do research. And I defined 3 segments of research at that time. I don't know if they make any sense to other people, but at that time it made some sense to me. So one of them is called the Architecture of Crisis. The other, it's the Holy Craft. And then there is spiritual anarchism. Today, we're going to talk about, I guess, the Architecture of Crisis, which is the research I took to Mexico City.
Okay.
In the residency I was doing there with the lab program.
Okay.
With Valeria Montoya.
Valeria
Montoya. By the way, it's the best residency I ever did, and it was a luxury to be able to do all of those things. If it wasn't for her, would never be possible to have got to know Mexico this way. Let's start by sharing the screen. Yes. Okay, so here is the name of this project. I did some kind of symbols. I work a lot with symbols, especially for a long time, but also symbology is very present, especially on this segment of the Holy Crafts. But somewhat I wanted to make these icons that I basically later on turned into patches. It was a way I found to disseminate the work. So one stands for spiritual anarchism, the other for architecture of crisis, the one on the bottom left, and the other is for the bottom right is for the Holy Crafts, and the hand with the 7 fingers on the top right, it's for the whole project. So when I went to Mexico, or before I went, I had some projections of what I was going to find. My proposal basically at that time was that I wanted to visit the slums or the cities on the surrounds of Mexico City. And I also wanted to research some architects that had come with solutions for the housing, for the lack of housing. From my research, I found this Juan Jose Diaz architect. And by the way, on this, the left side of the screen, this is a still from a documentary, which is called Indios da Meia Praia, which is about a social housing project on the south of Portugal. And my idea, so I found this analogy with the Aztecalita house from Juan Infante, and also this shanty house made of metal sheet from this Portuguese community down south. And for me, my projections of what a slum would look like was pretty much this kind of housing, like made of metal sheets and recycling materials of any kind, like plastic and things like that. This is a little video of this house being carried by the community around, which I think is beautiful and symbolic, and you know, there is so much you can take out of this short film. Then when I came to Mexico City, and by the way, I know that the slums, I always think of them as neighborhoods, but they are actually cities that are connected to Mexico City. For some reason,
you know that we say that there are many cities within the city, right? I mean,
yes.
That applies in Mexico City. Mm-hmm.
But they just look like huge neighborhoods, you know, there is not really a huge center, or, you know,
no. Yeah.
It just feels like they are connected, very connected to Mexico City. Anyways, I went to several places. The slideshow is not in the right order. Valeria at the time, she was the one that I presented a proposal, and she was the one that guided me to the places she thought they were interesting somewhat within this theme of architecture of crisis. So this is Ecatepec, and there was two things that really impressed me, or I didn't expect. One of them was that there was a plan from the municipality or the government to color the houses, the bricks, in the same colors as the colors of Mexico City, and that really worked. I don't think it's so very visible on this photograph, but it really worked to make it way more lively and happy, and you know, as a general very easy plan. I think maybe you can talk a little bit about this neighborhood. I know little, and I think the reason Valeria took me there, I know it's one very violent neighborhood, and also it's in the very edge of the city because it's by the volcanoes. So there is a lot of issues with living on a place like this, especially because of radiation and pollution of air and the water. It's very little water resources. But then he has this phenomena, which is this cable cars. Mm-hmm. And I was, of course, had an introduction to why they were there. And I know it's some sort of model that was brought, I think, from Colombia. And I know that what's the reason for that, but I would never guess if no one has explained to me. Because to me, this just looks like a touristic attraction. This is where tourists go, I would think, to go and see the poor people down. Okay, this is not really politically correct thing to say, but
tourism for the poverty, right? Poverty tourism.
Yes, exactly. So you go and in your safe bubble, no, this looks almost like a bubble, and you look down, and there is this kind of also this kind of analogy with this kind of pyramid of health that is really strange. Anyway, so we took this, and just to explain the reason why they have these cable cars, it's because they thought it was a solution to violence, especially to robberies and things like that. Like if people go home on the cable cars instead of going via train or minibuses, they'll not be robbed, they'll be more safe. The thing with these cable cars is that people really doesn't use them. So I was there and it was amazing. The view is amazing. They were all super clean, and sanitized, and then empty as well. But well, this is something I would never expect, would never be in my projection of a slum. Here we are, this statue. I know it's quite a polemic.
Sebastian, yeah. The controversial thing of it is because they spent so much money to do it.
Yes.
In a so poor community.
Exactly, yes. Well, I heard that, and I think it's even more massive than it looks on this photo.
It's huge.
But this is a guerrero, right? Is a Shimali is his name. And he's supposed to be
Guerrero.
Yeah, but he's supposed
to be warrior.
Sorry?
A warrior.
He's a warrior, a guerrero. Yes, a warrior. And he's supposed to bring some identity to this place, right?
Right.
So it's for the people of this place.
Well, the conception of the artist was that.
Exactly. This is in Chimalakwan. How do you say the name of the city?
I don't know.
Chimalakwan and this.
I don't know.
It's very nearby Neza, but I don't think it's in Neza. It's in Chimalakwan. Neza, it's near. Neza is the neighbor city, I would think. Anyways, the thing about this huge giant statue is that also reminds me of these cable cars again, because it looks again like a touristic attraction, and you can go up in the lift and you have a panoramic view over the whole neighborhood, which is amazing. And then again, no one is using it, and it was also made for the people of the place. Right. But no one goes and visit these places. Exactly. So it was just me and Valeria, and I think the mother and the little girl. But you have this amazing view. And again, there is this verticality, like in the cable cars. I was really amazed by, again, this phenomena. How can you just place something here like this? I mean, what does it do? How are you thinking the city, and what does it mean? This is, I think, is in Neza. This is something that I was more looking for on this kind of slums. Okay, this is a fence made of recycled bottles, and this is another similar situation. I think it's just a little garage to fix cars, and they use the tires to actually keep the roof stable, or keep it from flying away. From the wind. Yes. So, this I think this is more close to what I expected to be the architecture of crisis in Mexico. But, I didn't really project the fact that there is earthquakes and there is natural disasters, because in Portugal there's none, and Europe, it's very little. That we don't build houses thinking that there's going to come a hurricane or an earthquake. And of course, is one of your concerns when you think about architecture in Mexico. Then I went to Iztapaluca, which I have to show you this video. This video is from Jordi Colomer, and is a Spanish artist. He works a lot with utopian nature and town planning in large cities. And he made this video of Iztapaluca. I'm not showing the video today because I'm not trying to show his work, but he has a very good documentation of what Iztapaluca is like. And this was really surprising. This was shocking, because this is thousands. I'm just going to put the sound down a bit. These are like thousands and thousands of houses looking all the same. And they look just like a typical middle-class house typology from the United States, Exactly.
I was thinking in the States.
Yes, and I would never think that this will be a slum or a problematic neighborhood. If you look at the entrance of every street, they have a gate, and they usually have a guard there. Because of course there is. there is a huge problem with safety. And you know,
But I
you
mean,
look at this
I'm
house.
sorry. The thing is that we all live with gates.
Well, that's true. But you see this house model, and on my universe, this kind of housing does not fit with a violent neighborhood.
Mhm.
And also doesn't fit with the fact that the basic resources like water, and I'm not talking about clean water, I'm just talking about water. So these places don't get water every day. The air is polluted, the soil is toxic, the radiation is high. And then when you look at this, I mean, you don't, the crisis here is not just the house, you know, it's everything else. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
I never expected this project. I think it's quite amazing in many ways. So, and then these kind of phenomena happen because, you know, all the houses are exactly the same. And then people, I mean, architecture in the end is a reflection of the person or that inhabits it, right? So it in the middle of all these housings, what was interesting was how people try to express themselves within such a rigid grid, you know. So I think this bush is very illustrative of it, you know, because the house is the same, but then there is a guy that really likes a big bush and the guy that really likes a small, or a woman, we don't know, that likes the small bush, and they are connected and the houses are all the same. But then there is this really like identity, small details that, you know, make some mad, for me it's kind of magical, this kind of remarks, you know.
Yeah.
Yes, so going from the big cities to the center of Mexico City. So this is in Juarez. This is street camping. I'm not sure the reasons why these people is camping. I believe maybe it's not because they are claiming house, could be any other issue.
Well, in the Juarez, I think it's because of the earthquake. You came after the earthquake, the 2017 earthquake.
Because there is also this phenomenon that I experienced in Mexico City, is that when people want to protest about any like social issue, they also go and camp.
Yeah. Yes.
Over the street, you know?
Yes.
And they stay there for the long day. They feel like they need to stay there. And they close down streets, basically. Yes. And I wasn't sure about the story.
Correct. But I guess those are because of the earthquake, they remained without house.
So I started thinking about all this concept of architecture of crisis, because it was so diverse, you know, in terms of how things are built and how the formalities of it. This is the Juarez, and they managed to close down those streets. The street is no longer in use. It's just squatted.
And it's also amazing, and maybe you're gonna talk about this later, you could see the cables. So they are stealing the electricity. Can you see that?
Yes.
And it's a very common thing to do. I mean, if you go to the street. Yeah.
Now I remember all the cables together. Yes, it's No, but you know, this is some sort of squatting. I don't know, but it's also a different kind of squatting than the squatting we see in Europe, because in Europe you are like part of almost of some sort of anarchistic movement, and here it's like you are a squatter without a movement, which is another way to look, you know, at squatting. This is also street camping. This is nearby Frontera. Is in the center, right? Pequito Market, is it called Pequito?
Tepito.
So, but I think this situation here has to do with another kind of crisis, you know?
No, yeah, totally.
I think has to do more with really individual and personal crisis, and that can be related to anything from abuse, violence, or like substance abuse, violence, or mental issues, or other kind of thing. But then again, you see that, but you see it's also very well taken care of. For example, on this image, you have things are very well put together, and they are very neat. And the places they choose are lovely, you know. It's like these public gardens with these nice trees, and then they are very creative about it. They may put these masks and these Christmas tree little balls around, and I love this picture because, you know, it's almost like an art piece. It's like this force between this sculpture that is falling and this tent that is holding.
I mean, that could be an Rita Antonio. I mean,
yes, like this kind of pictures, just this kind of like solutions, almost makes me so emotional. Like I get, I could cry over it, you know. Yeah, so this is also part of, I know, what could be the architecture of crisis. Okay, this is another phenomenon, and I never thought about it. This is Doctores, you know, it's another colonia, another neighborhood in the center of Mexico City.
Quite dangerous also.
Quite dangerous. But you know what I found really interesting is that you understand the neighborhoods, and this is part of the architecture or the urbanism or the skin of the city. Ne? Yeah, you understand the people, what kind of people might live on the neighborhood through the saints. For example, these two they are the saints that protects the drug dealers. So you will assume that in the Doctores there is a lot of drug dealing. But if you go to these Tepito markets,
Tepito
markets,
Tepito.
Yeah, if you enter a chapel there, you'll find other saints, and it's the saint of the hopeless. How do you call it? You have these saints for the hopeless. It's not the right name.
Maybe in Tepito you could see San Judas Tadeo, and maybe,
San Judas Tadeo, yes.
Right, and here you can see at the left Malverde, at the right La Santa Muerte.
La Santa Muerte, yes.
Yeah.
So in a way, I found this interesting. Like all of a sudden, you can also map the city by the saints that are on the chapels. You know, like
amazing, yeah.
Understand the crisis of it.
Because I never thought about that before.
Yeah, me neither. Till I went to Mexico, but I thought it was so exciting. I was like, okay, this is a way to map somewhat, and yeah, it was really interesting. This is actually a building that collapsed with the earthquake. This is in Doctores. This is a parking lot, and somewhat I like the way this also changes the landscape of the city with the crane and everything. And to be honest, after I did all of this research, I felt like I had to define crisis. Okay, so then what is crisis? Because I had all these. I must say, I had my mind was very narrow in terms of projections of what the crisis could be. I kind of tried to define crisis and really try to define it based within the Mexican context. So for me, it was really like street camping. It was it was a nomadic lifestyle, was unfinished architecture, was a super rigid grid of USA typical middle class housing, was a lack of resources, was ambulatory services, like you have all these little business, a process of self-construction, like when you see these changes on the building, when you try to adjust architecture to your life, basically. I don't know, a lot of different things. And basically, at some point, I just got so overwhelmed with so much information and what it could be. And this residency that I did in Mexico City was actually just 5 weeks. The first weeks was research, and in the last 3 weeks was I decided I would kind of present a model, like some sort of practical outcome of what I've seen. But you know, I look back and it was really hard to project something. Anyways, I tried my best. Before we get into what was the outcome of this research, at some point I mean, I was really happy and really excited about going to all these neighborhoods, right? But some of them I couldn't just go because they were really, really far and very dangerous. So what I did as an alternative was to travel on Google Maps.
Right.
So I went to La Paz, Los Reyes, and which are even more far away, like cities in the surroundings of Mexico City. And I start to photograph, screenshots, all of these buildings. This is just a few images, I have a lot. And yeah, try to see how was the architecture there without taking any risk.
Right.
And then we have to talk about this because you're the one that introduced me.
First of all, let me say something. You took a lot of risk going to Ecatepec and then Nezahualcóyotl. I mean, many of the Mexican citizens, they don't know those places, and you did go. I mean, you knew many places that many of us don't know.
I'm aware of it, but I was very fortunate to have someone like Valeria, which is a tough cookie and quite a fearless woman, and taught me how to what I should pay attention to. I also learned one thing: never, if you're going to visit a neighborhood or a city out that is on the edge of Mexico City, then you should not Google anything about it. I mean, just dress down, keep your senses open. Don't Google it, because then you're going to get really frightened. And once you are frightened, and things start to go wrong, basically.
Right.
So it was kind of important to kind of manage your emotions and your fears and rationalize a bit and feel your senses. But yes, I'm aware of it, and I think I think that's why this residency was so amazing, because it's such a privilege, and I really wanted to do that. And for me, I would go back again to do the same. So about the slides, do you want to say anything about it, or should I say something?
No, please do.
So at some point, I think it was you that mentioned that some real estate agencies in Mexico had this slogan, which says "Tiene casa para crecer," which means there's house to grow. Is that how you translate it? There's house to grow.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really interesting, because especially when you go to Ecatepec and Neza, you see all these houses. The tops are always like these pillars with the metal sticks, the iron sticks, and you feel like they are all unfinished. And you see it everywhere. I try to play a bit with this slogan. So I basically just took screenshots in Google Maps, and I started exploring what was the possibilities of a house that kept growing, depending on the people that either live. In a house, a lot of things happen. People move in, people move out, families grow, people change their ideas, they create new needs, they go to crisis, they have better moments, they have better economy, not so good economy, and the house just builds up on all of it. So basically, here the idea was to explore exactly that, like, okay, what could be like an assemblage of all these phases of someone's life?
Yeah, but I mean, of course, you did this in Photoshop, right?
Yes, yes.
But it's not a very strange image, This house to grow, you can see that in these cities, but also in the rest of the country, in province. It's a very common thing to see. And it's this promise that, I mean, maybe you don't have the means right now to buy a big house or something like that, but you can buy a one-floor house, but it has the promise to grow. So it's with this expectation, with this hope that you
I know, but that hope is also kind of makes sense. No, because you grow, right?
Change. You grow, you change, but in all those cities that are growing horizontally around the city, there's no plan at all. and it's growing like this, just like this.
It's organic growth. Yeah, which
It's organic growth, just like as we are, of course, humans, right?
Yeah, but that makes sense, right? I mean, that's what architecture should be about. Should be like an elastic, should have this elasticity. Otherwise, well, actually, I went on and on this research after, and I went going to pick up some reference from the 70s about exactly what architecture should be and how people really lives architecture, and how it should transform and unfold together with the person that inhabits it. So this was, I think, was important to leave some broken things, things that need to be fixed later, because we all have those things in our life that are to be solved a bit later. We have that conversation to have, we have that thing to fix, that tooth perhaps, I don't know, it's like it's this parallelism between these two things was just like something I was trying to explore here, basically. But I ended up doing something else. I ended up making a mobile installation, which I presented. I produced it at Frontera, and I must mention Frontera because it's a great place with great people. It's a collective with artists where they have their studios, and I had my studio there. The lab program usually hosts all their artists there. So I made this piece called Hacking a Diablito with an Office Shelf, and I presented it at Aeromoto Library, great place as well. So I did this mobile installation, and when I was thinking about this mobile installation, I decided that I must grab something that is very typical Mexican. And for me, I saw diablitos everywhere, like Mexico City has this thing with markets. It's the markets, the city of markets. So you see these service cars everywhere, and it's so funny that they are called little devils. And and there is
why?
So many.
Do you know why?
No, I think it's because of the ears. I don't know. It has these ears. I don't know. Do you know why?
No. I'm asking. No, I don't.
No, but I look at it and I think, okay, of course, this is a diablito. It has like these little devil ears,
Okay. Could be.
But it's probably something completely different. Has these great characteristics, it's mobile. You can move from place to place. So I wanted to integrate this local thing, because I think it's really important when you think about architecture. You have to think about local resources. You're not going to import marble from Italy to build the opera house in Oslo, as they did.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. So.
Everywhere.
I mean, yes.
I do too. I import a lot of things, but anyways, think about a more general ideological, realistic, sustainable way to project something. I think you must, use the local resources. I decided I was going to hack this diablito with an office shelf. I mean, this office shelf came, it just showed up. So basically, I went to Merced, to the markets, to buy this diablito, and on the way to the studio, I saw these ads which said shelves to sell for low price. And I was like, okay, this is it. This shelf crossed my path, so I must integrate it in my diablito. And the shelf has this kind of how do you call it, modular characteristic. It's just screws and things, and you cut it and you can make it fit. What matters is not what you have, but what you do with what you have, which is a motto that is very relating to hacking. And for me, hacking has a lot of advantages, and is something I've been working with for a long time in my former projects. So basically, I just married these two things, which was diablito and a shelf.
Talk a little bit more about this hacking. You said it's to do something. It's not about what we have, but about what we do with it. I mean, in undeveloped countries, we are very used to hack. It has become a way to live, And in activism, it's very, very common to do the hacking. And maybe it doesn't have anything to do with what you're talking about, but it's like to get into the system, steal the language or whatever, and then insert into that system and then deliver a message.
You know, for me, hacking is something much more pragmatic, has much more to do with material and with objects, and to really try to understand the multiple functionalities of an object, and also is a reaction to the capitalistic model, you know, like in this a lot about being self-sufficient, but it's also about creativity and poetics. And how can you turn this into something else? I mean, it's somewhat a force of resistance.
It's a resistance. It's a resistance. That's why I'm telling you about the activism, and it's this. I understand this connection with the architecture of crisis, because it's a way of hacking something,
yes,
that you have, or it was meant to be something else, but you use it for your own advantage, for your own needs, right? You transform it.
Yes, and you can do it for many reasons. I think usually when you do it is because you have very low means of production. Maybe your economy is not so good, and maybe you just need to reinvent the object because you don't have the capacity or the economical power to actually buy something new. But then a lot of things happen on this process, and that's what's very interesting to me. Yes, a movement of resistance, but then what you get out of it, it's something that sometimes is completely magical, you know, because you discover there is so much freedom and so much creativity and so much discovering on this process, like, because it's a process of reinvention. That's what it is.
Yeah, but and also, it has to be certain precariousness.
Yes, I think there is always this feeling of instability or precariousness. Yes, because it's not meant to last. Maybe because it's not a perfect solution. Because
a quick solution.
It's a quick solution. Yeah, it's a quick fix in the end.
It's a quick fix.
It doesn't have to be necessarily, but I think when you do this, you celebrate something which is really being self-sufficient. And being independent. And I don't know, you go onto this dialogue with yourself, and it's empowering. For me, I think it's empowering.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it has been part of my work for so long, and I grew up with this mentality, and I try to explore it as much as I can. And in Portugal, we have this concept which is not translatable apparently, but it's something very similar to redneck repairs, if you know what that means, which is called desenrasca, and basically is about quick fixing and hacking and all of those things. I also try to incorporate on this diablito some sort of like street business. Basically, that's why I have these fruits here. These fruits are part of the architecture of the thing, but they are also street business. Actually, this diablito turns into a bed. You can sleep on it, and it's also an office you can work on. And then there's some remarks on what's the essentials of living, which is nature and soil and water, and food and rest, and so those things, they are kind of present there, and a little bit of identity somewhat. At that time, talking about hacking still, I did hack this I didn't hack the library, but I did some downloads of some guys, some of my biggest reference in terms of architecture from the 70s. One of them is Ken Isaacs. He had this catalog, How to Build Your Own Living Structures. It's also a modular system he made, and I'm a huge fan. There was a lot of designers, especially on the 70s, like coming from all these hippie movements, like Papanek and Hennessy with the nomadic furniture, and also Hankin Bay, which is an anarchist, and with this manifesto TAS, and some other open sources or other models that was already explored in the 70s within this kind of universe of surviving out of a little bit out of the system with the system and what's available and being independent from it. So this is my presentation. This is how it looked. This mobile installation at Aeromoto. I had this stand with juice. Every time I went to my studio, I bought this bag of orange juice with a straw on it, and I thought it was so funny. It came in a bag, and it's relating so well with the whole like quick fixing thing. And
but just think about the plastic, Rita. Plastic.
I know
everywhere.
But I had the catalog about how to make a garbage house with plastic. So you know everything.
So.
I mean, the glasses are also on plastic. I mean, we can talk about plastic another day. That's another issue for sure. Yeah. So I had some people coming over, and I just explain the piece and talk a little bit, and we changed some ideas. And that's the great thing about Mexico, is that people are really engaged and they really want to know what you're thinking, and they really want to participate. And it's so different from Europe, and I'm so glad I had that experience.
I don't know, it's gossip, I guess.
It's not gossip, it's like engagement and like participating and like discussing things for real. So I had this publication too, and this publication was just the whole story of how I got to this diablito, and what was my references and what was my expectations and what turned out to be something else.
I love the design because it's so organic, so chaotic, so
yeah. I mean,
like the project, right?
Yes, I think I had to do it like this. It was what made sense. And basically, this is the means of production. And it was fun, you know, it was fun to just do it this way and to have fun with it. Because sometimes, you know, you forget, you get like closed in what things should look like. And then, yeah, so I revisit this kind of way of doing. Yes, this was pretty much my presentation for today.
Okay, that was fantastic. The whole project.
Thank you.
And I'm really looking forward to what's gonna come up with this architecture.
Me too.
Me too.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, the plan is to go to Cuba and continue the research. I hope it happens this year.
Great.
Maybe I'll drop by Mexico again. I would love.
Yeah, you have to. Or, yeah, well, you have to tell me in advance, and then
we plan it.
Not so far, so.
Yes.
Ana Rita, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Angelica.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. It's always a pleasure, and I'm really happy with Maravilharte. It's a great,
thank you.
project. Okay, take care.